From Loyalty360. Hope everyone's happy, safe, and well. Want to welcome you back to another edition of Loyalty Live. In this series, as you know, we get the privilege of speaking with leading agencies, technology partners, and consultants in customer channel and brand loyalty about best practices they are seeing around customer experience, brand engagement, but most importantly, customer loyalty. Loyalty Live allows for a deeper assessment of the state of customer loyalty as we surface challenges that brands are having with regard to their customer loyalty efforts. And by bringing this back to our supplier community, we get a very unique perspective of how they are addressing these unique challenges within their client base. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Mills. Chris is the Chief Revenue Officer at Talon.One. How are you today, Chris?
I'm doing great, Mark. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today. Nice to meet you. First off, we like to start these on a more personal level. So we'd love to know a little bit more about you, kind of your background and your current role at Talon.One.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I'm the CRO at Talon.One. I've been here for a little over 2.5 years now, overseeing the global go-to-market motion. We have representation everywhere from Australia to Seattle. We're headquartered in Berlin, and we've got a team in UKI as well. So we're really global in nature. So I lead the go-to-market effort on that basis. And from a background perspective, I spent the better part of a dozen years in small SaaS companies, as of late, mostly in MarTech, and just living to build out go-to-market motions. I've also lived on the product side as well. It's part of the reason I fell in love with Talon.One. It's a company that lives and breathes its product. And so I get to evangelize how the product aligns with the customers we're working with.
Okay, great. Fun fact, is there something you enjoy outside the startup world, MarTech world? Do you have 14 kids? Do you like to scuba dive, jump out of planes? What's something you enjoy outside of your work life?
Sure. I do have 2 kids, a 2 and a 4-year-old. They take up most of my time. But outside of that, when I can get free of it, I fish. I love to fish. I've traveled all over the world fishing, and I actually live on the water. So I've got the opportunity to cast a line and hopefully catch a few fish sooner rather than later, since the weather's turning here in Boston.
Okay, great. Fishing is a very passionate endeavor for most people. I'm not a big fisherman, but everyone I know who loves to fish, it seems to be a big part of their life. So that's good to hear. When you look at Talon.One, for those who may not be familiar with Talon.One, can you give us a brief background on what Talon.One does, how they do it, kind of the genesis of the company, and maybe even what industries you play in?
Yeah, great. So definitionally, we're a headless loyalty and promotion engine. What does that mean? I guess would be the question, and where do we come from? So a bit of the background and story. Our founder comes from the food delivery space and was leading on product and marketing. And in food delivery, as you know, it's like, hey, I got to get someone to buy another pizza. How am I going to do that? I want to give away a free 2-liter, or I need to think about bundles and special discounts or ways to reactivate people because you've got 20 competitors. It's not a highly loyal space either. And so he was always tasked with trying to figure out what these promotions are. And in doing so, left that business to go create it as a microservice. So said, hey, I think this could be a business in a standalone basis. So when you think about our foundation is being a promotion engine. And what does that mean? It's intimately understanding the checkout and the cart and being able to manipulate that, whether it's give free shipping, strike a price, drop a discount, have a coupon code validated, all of those things that come along with it. Is where we started as a business. And over the years, we're about 7 years into the journey, we've realized that when you overlay promotions, incentives, and rewards with personalization and understanding the ledgers and the people, it's the perfect mix of loyalty, of what loyalty should mean. And so we sort of did the hard part first, which is being able to really intimately understand at scale the checkout and the cart. And now secondarily have really invested in, well, what does that mean as an individual? Who are you, Mark? And what should you get to continue to stay loyal with the brand or gain that loyalty that comes along with it?
And it's interesting, the genesis of the company, understanding kind of the challenges in the market that exist and adapting the technology set or creating a technology set that can truly address that. That's very unique.
Yeah,
So
for sure. And yeah, I'll just add, like, we are part of the Mach Alliance, and we really do think about being an API first solution, which then gives our customers the ability to own the customer experience, and we do all of the infrastructure and sort of the hard work on the back end.
okay. Excellent. And when you look at customer loyalty, one of the things that we love to do at Loyalty360 is understand how brands, agencies, technology providers are defining customer loyalty, just to get a more robust understanding of how it's defined and how people are socializing and talking about it. So, what does customer loyalty mean to you and to Talon.One?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I talk to a lot of customers, obviously, in my role, and a lot of prospects for that matter. And often the conversation goes that loyalty is not a point schema necessarily. Points can be a component of that, but I think often when people hear loyalty, they think about earn and burn.
Right.
And I think the reality is uh, that has some impact, and it does help a lot of businesses and brands move forward. But when they're thinking of the genesis or the next evolution for what they want in loyalty, it's about a unified customer experience, thinking about all of the parts of the journey where we can drive emotional connection to the brand, where we can truly create engagement. So I always say, hey, let's talk about loyalty with a capital L versus loyalty as a function of your platform, right? We can talk about it a little bit later, but I also find that platforms that sit off to the side or loyalty ledgers that sit off to the side are almost like a rejected organ at some point in a company because it's not ingrained in the customer journey. And so that customer value piece is so critical when we think about what does loyalty mean. So it's incentivize anywhere, incentivize everywhere, understanding what does Mark want to see at the right time? What does Chris want to see? How is that different? What do we care about? And making sure that we operationalize that effectively.
Yeah, I think it's a unique definition. I think one of the challenges we see, and I've always felt, is there's this belief of loyalty marketing, and I think that's a very enigmatic term because if you can't define it, much like customer loyalty, it's very challenging to put programs in and around it, right? So a loyalty program is very small, it's very focused, but the kind of the lack of a construct around it is very challenging. Customer loyalty, when you say customer loyalty, people know what that is, right? They know that it's engagement. They know that it's like C. Potter Stewart said in the Supreme Court case. I don't know what it is, but I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. So customer loyalty kind of follows that. Or loyalty program, I would like to see the industry kind of get away from loyalty program because it's just very old school, very programmatic, and it's very difficult to understand, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So when you look at the state of customer loyalty, we do a research project at the end of each year, and asking brands what are their goals for the following year, what are they looking to do, what challenges, opportunities do they see, and a surfeit of the brands suggested that they are going to be making changes to their program, either making changes, adding incrementality, or completely redoing it, with a new program. What are your clients asking you for right now regarding customer loyalty, and how do you see that going forward?
Sure. I think it's this idea that we need to stand out. There's this idea that we've gone through business transformation and digital transformation over the last 10 years. And in a lot of ways, we've become ultra efficient as businesses, but we all look the same, right? And so in doing so, now I want to think about how am I different as a brand? And then also how would I connect into the individual to actually change my KPIs, right? And to move the needle. We talk about sort of engineering the repeat purchase or driving re-engagement, especially when acquisition is so expensive right now. And with the economic uncertainty, I think there's a revive as sort of this, and we're sort of re-engaging this need to own the customers we have and monetize them as well. And so customers are coming to us saying, we want to think about gamified experiences. We want to think about emotional loyalty. We want to think about often non economic benefits in a way, things that aren't margin killers that will help my business move forward. And gamification is a great example of that, right? What are the behaviors that I want to change and dictate that will help me move the needle for my business?
Okay. You kind of started to touch on this idea of sea of sameness. That's a kind of belief too, especially when you look at loyalty programs. There's a belief that the loyalty programs, not necessarily customer loyalty, they're very similar, right? Points, although can somewhat banal at times, are a needed attribute of a program, but gamification and digital engagement and other more important attributes should be focused on. But when you look at loyalty programs, there's a belief that programs are very similar. How do you distinguish programs is a big challenge. So is that something you're seeing? And if so, how do you help brands distinguish their offerings?
Sure. I think it starts with who's your customer and what matters to them, and then work backwards from there. So Built Rewards is a really great customer of ours. They've got a lot of visibility in the market, small business in its own right, but they're growing rapidly by focusing on this market of rent payments. It's a completely underserved market. But if I start to think about building loyalty around rent payments, it comes back to who the individual is and what do they need to see and how do they drive that incentive, because adoption of the program is so critical for them. They're a great example of a customer who's thinking about, so from my view, it's the customer's customer, right? They're thinking about who their end customer is and what's required from them to incentivize that behavior change. And a lot of that comes down to being able to test and iterate quickly. We talk about segments, A/B testing, where our customers are doing really well.
Okay. Is there a current trend or technology or idea that you believe brands should be focused on with regard to their customer loyalty efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned it before. It's this emotional loyalty. It's we've got a customer who is in the high-end fashion business, and they don't do discounting, right? That's not something they do. They don't offer in like these types of incentives that you would traditionally think about. And they actually don't even want to have tiers from a loyalty program perspective, because they feel like in some ways that cheapens their brand. So they have shadow tiers in the background that are running on Talon.One, the ability to say, actually, I know where the customer sits. And because of that, they get access to special drops, or they get certain marketing material that allows them to feel exclusive and engaged in a different way. And so a lot of it's non-monetary, but it's building this emotional loyalty. I know that I'm special to the brand. And so we've seen that emotional loyalty and the gamification as the two sort of big next steps as people think about, how do I necessarily move away from a static point system?
Okay. So in that vein, when you talk about gamification and some of the personalization efforts that you're focused on, what's one piece of advice you share with brands, or you would share with a brand that could help them improve their customer experience and customer loyalty efforts?
Yeah, know all the data elements, right? Know all of so we talked about this a little bit as well, is this journey for getting more zero party data.
Yeah.
Loyalty programs can be a catalyst for that and can help there. But if you think about all the attributes associated with a session or a checkout or an individual, or even the things around them, so like the geography of where they are and what they're located in, all of those things should come into play when you think about your incentive and reward structure to drive loyalty. And so it starts with the data schema. What are all the attributes, right? One of our largest customers sees that they have 85 different attributes that on every campaign they're looking and evaluating against when they think about how they incentivize and change those values for you versus me.
Okay. And the last question I have, it's somewhat self-serving, but what can Loyalty360 do to help the industry, both brands and suppliers and agencies in the customer loyalty journeys?
I think it comes down to educate and inspire. We're in a really fun industry, right? I say this all the time. I tell all my people on my team, just sign up for loyalty programs. I go into a store and people say, do you want to sign up for a loyalty program? I always say yes. And part of it's just, I'm incredibly curious about the different engagement strategies that are driven. And as I said, it's amazing how many of them are a lot of the same. And there's an opportunity to be different, be unique, stand out. And I think you've got unique experiences with your overlap with both the brands and the vendors to provide a level of insight that can help see companies truly delight their customers, right? Yes, there's a monetary benefit in the long run to building great loyalty, but there's also just this awesomeness of delighting your customers.
Absolutely. I think very unique perspective. It is interesting. I was at a pizza shop over the weekend, and they were doing a sign-up promotion to get people to sign up for the loyalty program. And I said yes, and I started grilling the poor guy with questions, and he was like, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm like, how are you incentivized? This is a corporate promotion. He's like, why all the question? I'm like, well, I run a trade association for the industry, so I'm always interested in what people are doing, how they're doing, and success metrics. And the poor guy was like, I don't know, guy. But
No,
it's
it's
interesting.
true, right? And that's where you start with those questions, right? We've got this luxury European brand as well, who have broken down all of their customers into 6 personas, and they're using their CDP to dictate that and drive that to Talon.One. But all of the rules are evaluated against that, even in the way they think about pricing. So they have super savers, people who are all the way on the cheap end of the discount, and then they have their luxury buyers on the high end. And the experience that those customers see are different, right? So they think about the way they segment their customers, but it all starts with the data.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me today. It was great getting to know you a little bit better, and then also getting an update on Talon.One. Obviously, a very unique platform that's addressing some market need, and looking forward to learning more from you and the Talon.One team throughout the year.
Great. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for joining today, Loyalty Live. Please join us back for another episode coming up soon, and have a wonderful day.